r/AskReddit. What's the most you've seen someone be so out of touch with reality? I work at a recording studio. The amount of people who think they're going to be the next big thing is scary. We are gonna get you so famous when we hit it big. I also record, and I hear this statement being uttered too much as well. My buddy runs a recording studio. The amount of deals people want based on their certainty of getting big is ridiculous. My brother's best friend married a pretty rich girl. He said the first time he saw her do laundry, she was going through her pockets and throwing her loose change in the garbage. She had no idea that people kept their change. Genuinely thought everyone just threw it away. Edit. Holy shit, my first gold. Thanks, friend. I clean houses, and the teenage girl in one of them throws away any bill that has a rip in it. Edit. And now my highest voted comment is an aside about a teenager throwing money away. Do you take the bills? Got a good one. I went to school in a UBC for a year and lived in the dorms. One of the super rich Chinese kids that populated my school lived on the same floor as me. Her first day there, she took a shower in the public bathroom and then just left all her clothes strewn about. She assumed the maid would come pick them up and wash them. Free clothes for everyone else, I guess. I've heard this is actually a thing at my university. Chinese students have to pay university fees up front in the UK, so many of them are supposedly quite well off and sometimes just give away their clothes because it's easier/cheaper than taking them back to China at the end of each year. Some years ago, I worked in a mailroom. The boss of my boss was talking about one of her family members who had some kind of emergency and had to come up with $30. 000. She said to my boss and I'll never forget this, I don't understand the problem. I mean, who doesn't have $30? 000 saved for an emergency? Beach. I work in a mailroom. Epilogue. I have been out of the mailroom for 8 years. I still don't have an extra $30. 000 lying around. Edit. This got way bigger than I thought it would. I should clarify some things. That was about 9 years ago. I am no longer in the mailroom. I have worked my way up through several promotions, and I am now a financial analyst with the same company. Oddly enough, I thank you for the links to r/personal finance, but I do not need them. My wife and I are in pretty good shape now. We both have masters in our respective fields, and while we have student loans to pay, we're in pretty good shape. Maybe not $30,000 just laying around shape, but we've got it covered. To anyone struggling right now, I would recommend that you check out the link to r/personal finance that has been provided several times. There are definitely some good ideas in there, and if it helps you put just a couple more bucks away per week, then it's done a good job. To anyone saying she was just joking, or just being sarcastic, nope, trust me, not the case. I remember seeing an article recently that said most Americans couldn't even afford a $1,000 emergency. Duck 30 grand. Most people can't come up with $1 grand. Edit. I guess it's $400, not $1. 000. Edit. I guess for some people they don't realize what this means. It means that you basically have to live in a bubble. You get into any sort of car accident, you're ducked. You get any mid-range or serious illness, you're ducked. You get hurt or anything that lands you in the air, you're ducked. I could go on. A simple solution to that would be insurance. Right? Well, you can't afford that shit. Insurance prices keep going up, so I hope you're getting a good raise every year. Otherwise, you're ducked. A simple solution to that would be get a better job. Right? That could be achieved by going to college and getting educated, amongst other things. But that shit is expensive as duck. If your parents don't make a lot of money, you could get financial aid like I did. If they make a median amount but not enough for college, then there's no financial aid. That means you take out loans. Unless you were lucky enough to get a bunch of scholarships. So now you'll have to live with student loan debt for a while. Another dark cloud of financial fear hanging over your head. Oh shit. Wait, your car just broke down and you can't pay to fix it. Guess you'll have to work overtime to be able to fix it. But wait, you don't have a car to go to work. And now they're cutting your hours to 1 hour less than full time so that they don't have to give you health insurance. Better hope you didn't have expensive prescription meds that your insurance was paying for. And you better hope you don't get sick or get hurt enough to land you in a. This is obviously just a pissed off rant and could be easily written off as life's tough. Deal with it. That's pretty damn true even in my opinion. But when the deck is stacked against you, it's pretty hard to succeed, let alone deal with a major blow like a $1,000 or $400. I have an emergency fund, but I'm pretty sure life knows when it tips over $1,000 because that's when a tire blows or the water heater dies. We were at a table, 6 of us, eating. The conversation turned to jobs employment. One of the guys, a rich kid that had most of his life handed to him, including his tech job at mommy's company, made the comment that he didn't understand why if someone couldn't find a job, they just didn't go back to school, get a degree, and try some more. He couldn't understand 2 things. 1. Most families cannot support an unemployed adult student for the time it takes to get a degree. 2. The jaw-dropping one was he thought that all colleges, everywhere, were free. His logic was that students go to college straight from high school and they don't have money, so how else could they afford school? We live in the US. And this guy was 27 years old, and we had to tell him school costs money. Reminds me of the story on Reddit about the salesperson who thought credit card is free money. Use all you want. No need to pay back. Well, just put the money you owe on a different credit card. My boss' daughter has 4 or 5 DUIs, so they took her license away and installed the Uber app on her phone. She tells people she has a personal driver. Edited to add, she has DUIs in multiple states. She almost got arrested for interfering when her daughter got arrested for DUI. Mom was in the car, too. Installed the Uber app on her phone. I like the insinuation that she is either too stupid or lazy to install the Uber app herself, so they had to do it for her. I like the insinuation that she is either too stupid or lazy to install the Uber app herself, so they had to do it for her. 4-5 DUIs, fam. Knew a guy who was really into Rage Against the Machine and getting pretty radicalized about government. One day thought he was being tailed by the FBI, so he threw it in reverse and rammed the car. Turns out it was the FBI. He was on a watch list, and now he's in prison. That dude sounds super in touch with reality. He figured out the FBI was following him. I don't think even 1 in 100,000 people are that observant. FBI must suck at being inconspicuous. I had to give my friend the sex talk, junior year of high school. Before that, he thought you took your wife to the hospital. They put you in a room. You peed on her and the baby would be conceived. Sweet Jesus. You peed on her what? The duck? He knew the penis is involved somehow. My dad actually believes that Obama is a gay Muslim sent here to destroy the country, so I'll pick him. The Obama conspiracy nuts are really fascinating. They somehow simultaneously believe that Obama is an effeminate weakling incapable of standing up for himself or the United States, but also a brutal dictator in waiting who's going to take away everyone's guns and bring all of America under Sharia law. It's an excuse for those people to be racist without saying they hate Obama for being black. Okay, so I was 15 and working at McDonald's. I was at the back window where you take people's money. A customer came and blew past the back speaker where you order. That was pretty typical, so I figured it was just a normal mistake. When they get to my window, it is a very old lady. She smiles at me, holds a grocery bag up with frozen chicken and a 2-liter of soda. She holds out a $20 bill and asks how much for the chicken and soda. 15-year-old me didn't have the coping skills for this. I stared at her for what felt like forever. Finally I said, I think you're confused. She drove off, with her car halfway over the curb. I spent several minutes staring blankly at the screen after this one. I still can't fathom what kind of transaction she was trying to participate in. Clearly a drug deal. My house isn't that big. I only have 6 bedrooms. One of my classmates added 1. This amazed me because the average number of bedrooms people have in my area are 3-4. UK. It was just the way they said it as if it wasn't a big deal. Edit 2. This is a pretty big house in a fairly affluent area. The house is built further off the road, which is usually uncommon in the UK, and often referred to as a mansion in our friendship group. As a joke. Bedrooms are actual bedrooms and they also have other rooms such as an office, etc. I'm not shitting on the rich. It just amazes me that some who are very fortunate can be blindsided. A friend of mine said he was disappointed that he couldn't find an affordable house that had just a couple acres and a pool. Well, yeah, your parents' house isn't an affordable house. It's a mansion. I had to deal with a similar attitude from my wife when we were looking for our first house. At every house in our price range. But I don't want this. I want something nicer. My parents only spent $183k on their house. Yeah, and they bought that shit in like 1994. Went on a trip with an ex to Asia. She didn't like it because she couldn't understand why people didn't speak English. So she would just yell at them. I need a napkin. Bathroom. Where? I pretty much told her to have some respect for people. Talk to them politely. She got all mad and fussy at me the whole trip. This is actually advice I give people. Go on an extended vacation with someone before you marry them. Open bracket. Foreign countries are especially effective. There are few situations which will be more revealing of personal character and the strength of your interpersonal dynamics. I live in London as a welfare rep for American students, knowing that American college costs a bundle, and the program to come over costs a load too. These students tend to be the richest and whitest of suburbia. One day the Wi-Fi went down and I may as well have told them that there was no drinking water in the UK. About 40 students were knocking on my door telling me it wasn't acceptable and that they were calling their daddies to sort it. My daddy is a lawyer. So if you think you're getting money for this accommodation when I haven't had Wi-Fi, you've got another thing coming, that sort of thing. I tried to calm them down. Let them know it would be back on in an hour or two when one of them said the following line. You can't blame us for being upset. We grew up in the first world. I was flabbergasted. Not only did she talk about being from the first world. Who does that? Like that is something to be proud of. But her entire argument was everything in my life has always been easy and perfect. How dare you take away the most minor of utilities for 3 hours? I despair at it. Changed another thing coming to another thing coming. Who knew that was right? I love the implication that London isn't considered first world by them. Edit. Yes. All your Brexit comments are hilarious. Each and every one. You should have asked them to explain what a first world nation is. That could have been really fun. I have a co-worker who once got visibly upset because I said he was about the same age as my parents. He's 51. My parents are 53. I'd like to point out that I didn't just say this out of the blue. He asked how old my parents were, and I knew his age. So I made the comparison. He also said things like I work out, you know. I'm stronger than guys half my age. Very much a man-child in denial. Edit. There's a much longer backstory with this guy. But TLDR, I used to catch rides with him after work and had to stop after a few weeks because he was sexually harassing me to the point I wanted to jump out of the car. Calling him a man-child was based on a lot more than his I work out comment. He really thought he was entitled to my romantic interest. A female co-worker half his age. I'm stronger than people half my age. Doesn't hurt being 21. I'm in my 40s. I bet I could still hold my own against up to 4 11-year-olds. I used to work in a pizza place and my boss, the owner, was one of the strangest guys I've ever met. He used to tell me that the world was run by reptilian aliens and that the moon was their base. He knew this because NASA once hit something off the moon and it sounded like a bell and thus must be hollow and full of lizard people. Left that job after 3 weeks. Funnily enough, during the Apollo program, part of the instrument package they would deploy on the moon would include seismographers in order to measure moonquakes. One of the ways they could figure out the interior of the moon was to crash the spent third stages of the Saturn V rocket onto the moon. They would in general know where the stage impacted the moon and the waves generated from the impact would travel through the moon to the seismographs. NASA noted that the moon rung like a bell every time they did it, for minutes at a time. Lizard people confirmed. I work in advertising. Lots of creatives and producers in this industry who are super out of touch with reality. Mostly it manifests itself in people taking credit for huge societal fads just because they used it once in an ad. So for example, let's say we used the word epic in an ad at some point. That creative will believe that they are responsible for how often the word epic has been used since then. Occasionally it will manifest itself in crazier ways. I once had to try to explain to a creative why a radio spot couldn't detect a listener's name and then automatically insert that name into the VO. Edit. Since this comment is getting a lot of attention, the impression that I got from the particular creative that wanted names in radio ads was that he assumed that the same technology that uses cookies to target web ads could be transferred to FM radio. I would be extremely surprised if he ever read Fahrenheit 451. Also, for those of you that are silly enough to actively want to pursue a career in advertising, I suggest you watch the show Happy-ish. It's not great, but it's the most accurate depiction of this industry that I've seen. Second edit. For those of you asking for career advice, this industry forces you to work long hours, for and with a huge amount of people who only got their jobs through nepotism. And at the end of the day, 99.5% of the creative work you do is shitty and worthless. The other 5% is less shitty, but still worthless. None of it is glamorous. Unless you're extremely dumb. Don't do it. Learn a useful trade and live a good life. I work in advertising too. The worst is them thinking their lives and experiences are typical. No, the average American doesn't have tons of discretionary income and live in Brooklyn. I hear this is why tech companies often make ridiculous always online shit that would never work reliably outside of Silicon Valley, because they are all living there and can't imagine what it's like to have small town internet or rural internet or just shitty internet even in a big city. That guy in Africa who got shafted by W10 update comes to mind. I bet you Ms. never thought that someone might have to pay a lot for downloading 6 gigabytes. I've met a few people who are really brilliant in one field, yet lack even the most basic level of sense in certain areas outside of it. Sort of like the thing about Einstein not being able to tie his shoes. If that's true, my favorite was a university professor. Absolutely brilliant knowledge of Middle Eastern politics, particularly around the Israel-Palestine conflict. He could remember insanely precise historical details going back thousands of years, and seemed to understand the subtlest of nuances on both sides of the conflict. His lectures were amazing, or they would have been, if he had turned off his cell phone. He simply couldn't figure out how to silence his phone, or even turn it on and off. He had let his tay do it for him a couple of times, but then he'd leave with it still off and couldn't figure out how to turn it back on until he came back the next day. So after going through that twice, he decided he would just leave it on, and it appeared that every telemarketer on earth had his number, because it would ring at least 5 times an hour at full volume, and he'd just talk over the top of it like it wasn't happening. He also never answered his email, because he apparently didn't realize that he had one or might need to use it. One day he'd forgotten to bring his little water jug, and sent his tay to the vending machine in the middle of a lecture to bring him a bottle of water. She brought it back and handed it to him, and he turned red in the face trying to get it open, before handing it back to her and declaring that something was wrong with it. She opened it quickly and easily. He'd been turning the cap the wrong way. I should specify here that this was not a super old guy who you'd expect to have issues with technology and life in general. He was in his mid or late 40s. Too much college, not enough high school. My father, by far, but the coin incident was the farthest from reality he's ever been. My dad collects coins because his extremely Hungarian immigrant grandfather convinced him that the bank, capitalizing it because to him, all banks are just one huge world bank, is determined to steal all his money from him, so he has to have a backup plan. This in and of itself isn't too extreme. Plenty of people choose self-sustenance due to a distrust in government and economics, but the real kicker happened when he tried to roll his coins. He has to order his coin rolls online because he doesn't want to go to the bank and get coin rolls because then the bank will know how much money he's hiding from them. I'm not kidding. Anyway, he ordered a bag of coin rolls and waited about a month for them to come before he started getting curious where they were. He asked my mom to check the order tracking while he was at work one day, which led to this conversation. Mom, Dad's name. It says here that the package made it to town we live in 2 weeks ago, but got sent back. It says you gave no delivery address. Dad, yeah, why would I do that? I don't want them to know where I live. They might tell everyone. Your father sounds like Ron Swanson. Someone I know thinks Soviet Union still exists and only our country left it. One of the lesser known Brexit consequences. That's what we wanted you to think. UNUSSR rep presses button. Berlin Wall pops back up. Tanks roll in Mayday parade. Lenin rises from tomb to crush capitalism. Not being able to use a desktop for emails, or handling 2 email accounts, so that you have to get all your professional emails on a private unsecured server. A guy I know once told me that dinosaurs were a hoax, and dinosaur bones were floating in space when God formed the earth. That's why they're trapped in the ground. My stepmother, really nice lady, but very tightly wound, told me Satan put the dinosaur bones in the ground to trick us. I asked her why. 1. God would let Satan mess with his creation, and 2. Then why did she let my dad keep a whole shelf of fossils in the living room if they were literally created by the devil? She went and had a meltdown in the bedroom, yelled at my dad for a bit, and I got sent to my room. A little while later my dad came in and said he'd been told to have a serious talk with me. Then he said, "Stop torturing your stepmother." He tried to look stern, started laughing, and had to wait till he could get his face under control before he left the room. Edit: my dad loves his wife very much and usually lets her have her way when it comes to things that are really important to her. I think he's either atheist or agnostic himself, but I'm not sure. Church is a big deal for her, so he goes to, volunteers and stuff. And yes, she is very pretty. Not a bimbo though. She has a good brain, but her parents tried very hard to keep her from using it on anything that wasn't sufficiently ladylike. Her dad was a Lutheran minister who loved his wife and daughter but believed that women were fragile and weak and needed good sensible men to look after them. Also, my mom, dad's first wife, is batshit crazy, so by comparison my stepmother is really easy to live with. She has a good heart. She's just a very nervous person and she gets scared if something challenges her beliefs. That's actually a common belief. The idea is that God allows Satan to mess with things to test people's faith. People who think the world is flat, I mean, it's been known for a very long time. There is plenty of evidence and logic behind it. What makes someone decide nope, it's flat? I really like to think it's all a big social experiment. I'm Ethan Bradbury. About 30% of my Facebook feed, some just post political or health or medical conspiracies bullshit all day and never actually research anything. My sister was just telling me this story. She went to a private high school in a very nice area with very rich kids. One day my sister sees one of her friends crying and quickly runs over to her to ask what is wrong. Her friend, through sobs, manages to say everything is just so unfair. I can't even believe my life. My sister is so concerned because this girl seems on the verge of a breakdown. After calming her down for a bit, my sister asks again what is bothering the friend, thinking maybe someone died or her parents are getting divorced. Well, you know my birthday is coming up, and so is my sister's. And well, sobbing some more, my parents are getting us both brand new Range Rovers. And because she is older breaks down, she is getting the black one, but I wanted that only. The only thing my sister could do was say I am so sorry for you and walk away. We still do feel bad for her. So detached. Me right now. Got told this morning that I have 17 days to write the remaining 50 pages of my thesis. And instead of having a panic attack and hyperventilating, I'm sitting in the library and watching Louis because I just wrote 2 pages of semi-coherent rambling. That's less than 3 pages per day, and you just got 2/3 of today's work done. What about that kid in Texas who murdered 4 people with his car, then pleaded that he was too rich to value other humans' lives? Edit: 4 people. What about the Stanford student who raped a female behind the dumpster, got 6 months in jail, and had the dad give a speech about how his son was a victim? Whoa, you made it to the end? You're a ducking beast. I'll cut you a deal. Smash like and subscribe for more curated content, bruh. It's free and that's a great price.